There had to be a layer of ice or some kind of firmament, some kind of dome, if you will, around the earth, encapsulating the earth before the flood.
Yeah. So if you read, I believe it's the second day of creation, I'm pretty sure, where God creates the firmament, it is, he comes to his orb of water. God comes to the orb of water and he says, let there be light. Now, of course, we're not talking about the sun. I believe it's 1 Thessalonians, don't quote me on that, where God says he is the light of the world. So on day one, the light that God is talking about is himself. He is now present at his orb of water, the earth. So day two, God goes to his orb of water and he creates air, separates the water, puts a big layer of air in the middle of the water. That means that not only is there water below, like we see today, there's also water above. And so very quickly in that environment, the water that's above turns to ice. It's not just water. There's some fascinating fiction stories about Leviathan swimming up over the heads of Noah and stuff in the firmament. Fascinating stuff. But it quickly turns to a layer of ice. And there is evidence of a solid dome overhead in Scripture. I will preface by saying just because you believe there is a firmament, just because you believe there was a dome over the earth, does not mean you are a flat earther. I've had people that assumed because you believe there was a dome means you're a flat earth. No, I believe there was a sphere of ice encapsulating the earth. So I don't believe the earth was flat. So where was I? Day two, God creates the firmament, and there's evidence for this in Scripture. First of all, early in Genesis, it says that God had not caused it to rain upon the earth because there was not a man to till the ground. Well, obviously something's very different in our atmosphere if it hadn't rained on the earth. Also, God warns Noah in Hebrews, somewhere in Hebrews, God warns Noah of things not yet seen. In other words, I don't think it had rained in the antediluvian earth, and so nobody knew what rain was. Also, when God sends the flood, he breaks the windows of heaven. He opens the windows of heaven. I believe he is literally breaking the firmament. Whether that's through a comet that destroyed a bunch of the animals, I'm okay with that, no problem. Or the fountains of the deep shooting rocks into our atmosphere, breaking, or some sort of melting thing that God caused. So we see evidence. There's more evidence in Scripture. Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering it all. But there's evidence of the fact that the atmosphere was very different in the days of Noah. Now, if there is a layer of ice in the sky, that means a lot of different things for the earth in the antediluvian world. You ready to get into that, Kyle?
Absolutely. Go for it, man.
So if you have a layer of ice, the earth is a tropical environment, North Pole, South Pole, East, West, it doesn't matter where you go. The earth is a lush tropical environment between 72 and 78 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly. Also, underneath that dome is more pressure. 1.6 times as much pressure as we have on the earth today. And with that pressure comes extra oxygen. We have 21% oxygen in today's air, but the antediluvian earth had 32% oxygen in the air. We know this because not only Christians, but secular science, when you take oxygen bubbles in amber, which is fossilized tree sap that captured air bubbles from the antediluvian earth, you know that there's 32% oxygen in those air bubbles. So we know there was a lot more oxygen in our atmosphere. So with extra pressure and with extra oxygen, that means a lot of different things for the earth, for the plants, for the people, and the animals. First of all, a fit human would be able to run for hours without getting exhausted with more oxygen in the air because your blood is much more efficient. Lizards would grow to be giants. Of course, we call them dinosaurs. And for instance, a titanosaur, let's go with the titanosaur generic term. It's 80 feet tall with lungs and nostrils the size of a modern day horse. A titanosaur in today's atmosphere would not be able to survive with those tiny lungs and tiny nostrils. But because there was more pressure in the air and more oxygen, they didn't need giant lungs or giant nostrils. In fact, under pressurized environment, your blood, you have two parts to your blood. You have the blood cells, which carries our oxygen, and you have the plasma, which is the liquid part of the blood. Plasma does not carry oxygen, but under pressure, it does. So your blood is a lot more efficient in the antediluvian world. So it means we've got those big animals are able to survive. In fact, reptiles, lizards, are anthropomorphic. What's the word for that? They grow based on their environment. Mm-hmm. So they won't grow any bigger than their environment allows. You will find the largest animals in the world today in the Congo jungle. They have a rain canopy, a water canopy overhead, which helps block the UV light of the sun. So lizards grew to be giants. The firmament blocked the UV light coming from the sun. This stopped genetic mutations in humans and animals. This stopped the cancer-causing genetic mutations. And therefore, humans lived into their 900s as evidenced in Scripture. Adam, Noah, Jared, they all died in their 900s. That's because the UV light didn't cause the cancer. And, we go into some different stories in the book about kids that were kept in their attic all their lives, and they were like 18 years old, but still looked like they were kids. Mm-hmm. One thing you'll notice in Scripture, and you pay attention, Adam, Seth, Enoch's the exception, but Adam and Seth were 130 before they had their first child. In fact, all of the patriarchs mentions being 130, 120, 140 before they have their first child. Well, that could mean a few different things. Enoch is the one exception. He's 65, I believe, when he has his first child. But that tells me that humans were not sexually mature until over 100 years old. And that is also a backup for being 900 years old before you die. We do see this again in Isaiah chapter 65 and 66 for the coming millennial kingdom. It says a man will be considered a child at 100 years old. It says men's lives in the future millennial kingdom will be as the lives of trees. Men will live 500, 600, 900 years before they die. Now that leads me to speculate that the new heaven and the new earth is actually not the normal Christian timeline, but is created after the Revelation tribulation, where the earth is destroyed and God recreates the firmament for the millennial kingdom. So I do believe the fact that men will be considered children at 100 years old, according to Scripture, Isaiah 65 and 66, is evidence that God will recreate the firmament for the new earth in the millennial kingdom.